Hi traders and welcome to the Friday Market Watch on the 28th of October. So I've seen some really good moves this week. We saw a couple of the key indices break through past their resistance and support zones, and also some of the key currencies have really moved and started to actually make some tracks to some serious levels. So we'll jump straight into the charts and see if we can identify any trades for today and early into next week. So we can see here that the Aussie USD has seen a big move really. The last 4 days have been really strong. We broke out of this consolidation area that we were identifying basically over the last few weeks, and it went straight into the resistance that we expected that we would find there. So this level here is around that resistance. I'll just quickly pop a line there so you can see what I'm talking about. Obviously, it was a resistance point from the standpoint that it came down, tested it, and could not break through above it again before it actually sold off. So that was always going to be the logical target. 65 cents was always going to be a pretty straightforward target for this one. And you really wanted to be taking profit there because, I mean, the idea that it's actually going to continue on without pulling back is pretty remote. So realistically, that was going to be a take profit target. Hopefully you're able to catch that. To get into those sorts of trades, once you've identified a level, when you go to the smaller time frame, say like on the 4 hour, you can see here that we've got a series of higher highs and higher lows on the charts. Fairly straightforward trading, really, and it's the stuff that we always talk about: roll reversals, retests of zones. I'll pop the 1 hour chart on as well, so you can see here it's even clearer on the 1 hour. Series of higher highs and higher lows, straight into the resistance, and off we go. So I'll pop on the 20 moving average here as well, so you can see that. Look, realistically, when we see the series of higher highs and higher lows working like that to a point where we know that we're going to have resistance, it's really easy to get into on the smaller time frames. You can go to whatever time frame you want. So depending on which area you're trading. So if you go to a 15-minute chart, you can see here, obviously, once we broke through, we start to see the moves up, and you're basically starting to take the moving average pullbacks straight into the resistance. So fairly straightforward trading on that one. I hope you were able to take advantage of that because we were talking about it for a while, and it did provide a really good move. We'll move over to the US dollar CAD now, and look, this one here, we'll pop it back over to a daily so we can get the bigger picture. And as you can see, we saw a really, let's make it all the way to the end. We saw the tops here at around that very close to 140. Didn't quite reach it on this move, but 139.75 was about as high as it got. But it was starting to keel over, and the thing was, when you know that you're starting to get that sort of action rolling over towards the end, you're going to be very conscious. Once it breaks through the moving average, you're going to be very tentative, and it moved down, down to 135 fairly quickly, really. The dollar strength was obviously a little bit weak this week. We'll look at the dollar index shortly, but as you can see, once we started to see that weakness and it breaks down below the moving average, it starts to really keel over. So very important to keep an eye on the signs that the tops are starting to be found. I'll pop the MACD on the chart here. You can see that. So this is the, you can see it's obviously behaving itself. There was no divergence there really. I mean, very minor. You could call that, a potential slight divergence, but not one that I'd be reading much into. So it certainly didn't have divergence in its favor on the highs, but you can certainly see that it's certainly falling now, and it's really going in sync. So we know that we're trading below the 20 moving average. That's pretty much all we need to know really to make sure that we've got a decent break off that level. And what we're looking for now is, if it's going to find support, this is probably the level it's going to find at the 135. Previous mini support here, you can see that there. I'll pop the line there. You can see that support was right through there once it did break through. If this level doesn't hold, then obviously the next real important level is going to be around that 132, which is still a little bit away, but 135 seemed a long way away last week when we were talking about it at 140. So it can certainly happen fairly quickly. We just have to keep an eye on the moves. But if we find support around this level, so if we go to a smaller time frame, and let's say we go to a 1 hour, and we see a series of higher highs and higher lows off this base, then we can start looking at potentially moving into the previous support and resistance zones, the little mini ones that were formed on the way down from this level at around the 137.50 in the first instance, and then back up to the highs. But really, we're going to let price dictate this one. If our price breaks down and closes below the 135, we start trading it down to 132. And of course, if we get a bit of a reversal and we see a series of higher highs and higher lows, we start to aim back up to the highs. Pretty straightforward trading on the CAD. Okay, so we'll go back down to a daily. All right, so now we'll move over to the US dollar yen. Same deal here really on the US dollar yen. Look, we were talking about it last week at 150. Went a little bit higher, as we can see, but like I mentioned, it's going to be very difficult for this to continue on past the 150 without some sort of a retrace, and when it did fall, it fell fairly quickly. The level it came down to was the absolute spot on roll reversal zone around that 145. Again, this is why you have to set these levels, because if we looked at the levels last week when we were trading at 150, 145 seemed a long way away. And even though I said that's probably the level it should get to, it didn't really expect it was going to get there that quick, to be honest. It did in basically 2 days. So here we are. We find ourselves at a very important zone. Roll reversal is very important here, because you can see this was on the daily a very strong resistance zone for many weeks. Okay, we had about 4 weeks of action there, and then it did eventually break through, but now it's testing it from above. So it's decision time for the yen. It either finds support at this level now and bounces off it and starts to test the highs again, or if it breaks through again, the next level is considerably lower. We're talking about basically a 139 is the next real roll reversal. So this is probably, you got another mini one here at about 142. You can see here these bases were formed. But again, we've got to wait for a price to see what it does from this point. If it bounces off this level, so you can go to the smaller time frames again, and if we see a series of higher highs and higher lows, and that could happen fairly quickly, then we know that we can target any of these resistance points up to the 150 again. But if it daily closes below the 145, we're probably going to be looking at a pretty weak sort of move, especially moving into next week. So certainly one to watch, but it's been really good trading on the yen, and hopefully, I know we were talking about it last week, hopefully you were able to actually catch hold of that short, because it was pretty straightforward really. We'll move over to the dollar index now. Dollar index is also one of those ones that actually fell from grace. We were talking about this over the last few weeks, how it was starting to weaken here. We could see very clearly that it was rolling over, and once it did close below the 20 moving average, it was all but doomed really to the next roll reversal. 110 was the obvious target, even though it did overshoot that. We can see that it got down to at the very low 1.9s. 110 was the real level. I mean, the thing is, when you're placing these trades, you really want to be aiming for the things that make the most amount of sense, and 110 was a very strong roll reversal zone. You can see there up the line, very strong resistance, very strong support. That was a very logical target around this level here, around the 113, when we could see very clearly that it was making lower highs. And it's a case of once we knew that and we saw this reversal candle and close below the 20, then it was a fairly straightforward trading all the way down to 110. So hopefully you're able to catch that. But of course, the euro was the beneficiary of that. The euro trade was the good one. We knew that we were getting a bit of divergence through here as well, not on this time frame, but on the other time frames. We looked at that last week. It did get a nice breakthrough and hit the parity, or the 100 if you like, fairly quickly. It has retraced a little bit now, but that lightning bolt was definitely in vogue. You could see the low, the high, the higher low, and once that happened, once it broke through the 100, it was always going to be a fairly straightforward trade. I really do like the euro for that long. I hope we really took advantage of that, because those setups, they come around often enough, but on a big pair like the euro, when you start to see a setup like that, and it's fairly easy trading, to me it looks very obvious what it was going to do. So hopefully you're able to get hold of that, especially when it did get past the 100, because that was really a sign that it had broken through. So the trade from there up to about the 180 was a very easy trade, because it really broke. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll get the horizontal there, and then you go to the smaller time frames and you can actually isolate it. You can go to the 1 hour in the first instance. You can see that although it looks difficult to trade on the daily because you just see big candles, but you knew the direction. That's the important thing. Once you understand the direction, it's fairly straightforward. You go to the smaller time frames and all you're doing is taking pullbacks. And it's a very easy target to get to. So as you can see, higher high, higher low sequences all the way up. And very easy to actually get into and trade to the point where we know we're looking for that take profit zone. All right, I'll go back to the daily and we'll jump onto the S&P. So again, this one did its job. We got the big lightning bolt. It broke above the moving average, obviously, and continued on. It hit a level of sort of 38.90. Really, probably the 3900 is going to be the very strong level. I don't know if it's done yet. I think all it's doing is actually taking a bit of a breather. I like what it's doing in the sense that we are in the middle of earnings season, so this is actually going up on the basis that we are getting reasonable results, or at least results that are in line with expectation, which is a good thing. Now, look, it's had a little bit of sell-off tonight, as you can see in the last session. We're back down to 37.85. I think it's important that it holds above this level. The level here that we've got is a very important zone for it. Now that we've actually seen a breakthrough and a series of higher highs and higher lows, you can see that we've got very strong support here at this 3790 to 3800 level. It's very, very important that we close the week out above 3800 next for Monday's trading. On Monday, if it's above 3800 and we've held up there, we're going to be looking at long opportunities up to 3900 and 4000. But if we get a daily close or a weekly close, which will be both obviously by Monday morning, and it's actually trading under the 3800, I'm probably going to be looking at these support zones back down here at around 3650 again, because we're probably going to see a little bit of weakness at that point. So hopefully we hold above the 3800 because I think the long is more lucrative. I think we've got more room to move up to get some decent trends happening. So I hope everyone's had a great week's trading. I think we've had some really, really good opportunities this week, and the technicals have been fantastic on all the levels that we were talking about. So hopefully you were able to take advantage of those. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.